Hello, everybody all over the world. I'm very happy to open the second day of UBL5 coming from Tel Aviv. And the first talk is going to be by Polina Eismont. It's going to be about information structure acquisition by Russian native children. And the floor is yours, Polina.
Thank you, but I cannot share. Now I can. Thank you. Now I can share my screen. Sorry. Okay, so is it? Can you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you. My talk will continue the topics that started yesterday evening session, and I'll say a few words about information structure acquisition by Russian native children. I'll discuss only one aspect because it's quite a large story. And let's take a look at the outline of my talk. So I'll say a few words about coherence organization in child narratives. Then I'll introduce the notion of narrative topic and present a part of our research of oral and written narratives in Russian child language. And I'll describe a series of experiments and discuss some studied parameters such as age, mode, and form, and their correlation with the use of narrative topic as a coherence instrument. And after that, I'll provide some conclusions. So first of all, I should mention that I use the term narrative as a general one, covering both personal narratives and induced or secondary narratives. And the problem of child narratives and the problem of coherence organization has a long history of study. At the same time, I should admit that Russian tradition of studying narrative acquisition is quite limited. The age when children start producing narrative-like fragments of text is 3 or 3.5, and the development of this process goes on until their adolescence. One of the most difficult aspects of narrative production, not only for children, but for adults as well, is the organization of coherence, the integrity of meanings, the completion of the story with the description of characters, with the initial point, the climax, and the final point, and so on. So what we have already known about narrative development. We know that personal narratives are developed faster and earlier than the secondary ones. We know that early stories are short, they lack details and contain few episodes. Early narratives lack embedded episodes and evaluation. They miss chronology and logics of plot development. Children omit most secondary characters. They have difficulties with completing their stories. The development of narrative skills requires cognitive development as well. The development of working memory, the development of theory of mind, of socialization, etc. And without the development of all these skills, children have difficulties with following both the chronological order or causal relations within the text, with maintaining the time and place setting of the events, with representation of the relations between characters, etc. Today, I want to discuss a tool that Russian native children use to organize the coherence of their narratives. I have called it narrative topic, and it's expressed by other adverbs of place or adverbs of time, but it doesn't convey any specific meaning, both meaningful or communicative within the utterance it belongs to, but works only as an element of the text itself. And its main function is to link the utterances. On the one hand, you may think that it's just another discourse marker, but I think it differs, at least in early child narratives, because it performs other functions. Narrative topics do organize the structure of narratives, but they do not set up any logico-semantic argumentative relations. At the early stages of the acquisition of narrative skills, they may compensate the setting of time and place. When children say, for example, tam, in Russian, there, or сейчас, which means now, and they do not indicate where this there is and when that now was. I believe this narrative topic may be considered as a kind of anchors suggested by Maya Hickman in 2003, in her book published in 2003. So let me show you an example. This is a story produced by a Russian native boy in another experiment that I will not discuss today. Here in italics are the themes of the utterances, while in bold is the narrative topic. In blue are the sentences with narrative topic, and you may see that all these sentences describe the actions of the main character of the boy. Between them in yellow are the sentences that describe the actions of the bird. I intentionally translated the story in English with the pronoun he, not it as it should be, because in Russian we also may misunderstand the reference of these pronouns in this context. And the only marker that connects the sentences with the boy as the agent and differs them from the ones with the bird as the agent is the adverb then. And so I believe it's a specific function because within the utterances then doesn't have any meaning, any semantics. So let me tell about the experiments that we have conducted. We have conducted 5 experiments with the same material. We used a cartoon which consists of 6 episodes with 1 chief and 4 secondary characters. And this cartoon was demonstrated in mute mode. So the chief character is a kitten, and during the whole cartoon, it meets different animals. First of all, it meets its grandmothers, and it meets rabbits, beavers, bear cub, and that's all. So the length of this cartoon is 4 minutes. We had 2 age groups of children. The children aged 5 to 6, they attend kindergarten. And the children aged 8 to 9, they attend school and it's 2nd or 3rd grade. We differentiate our experiments in mode. So we asked some of the children, some of the groups, we asked them to retell the story online without any preparation. So they had to watch the cartoon and retell at the same moment of watching. And another mode is delayed retelling. So the children watched the same cartoon and had to retell it either the next day or in a couple of hours. And also we differentiated the form of retelling. So we had mostly oral retelling, and we conduct an experiment with school students. We asked them to write their retelling. So we could compare their oral retelling and their written retelling. For oral retelling, we questioned each participant individually, so they couldn't listen to the other children retelling the same story. And for written retelling, sure, the whole school class was questioned together. They all were sitting in the same room, watching the cartoon and then writing their stories. Here you may see the instructions that we gave to our participants, and for online mode, the experiment was sitting back to the screen, so the child had to retell the story to the experimenter who, in our legend, didn't know the plot of the story. And for delayed retelling, as I said, it was the next day or in a few hours after the child watched the cartoon. And sometimes it was, the experimenter was the guy who wasn't present at the situation where the child watched this cartoon, so the legend was the same. The experimenter didn't know the plot. Well, and for written form, we just demonstrated the cartoon to the children, and they had to write it down, everything that happens in the cartoon. So we collected 118 narratives, and as you may see, we got different number of retellings for each group. Some of children took part in 2 experiments, some not. It's connected with the pandemics because it was quite difficult to get into the schools and kindergartens to collect the material. So the results. Let's start with age. So does it influence the use of narrative topic? As you may see, no, it doesn't. The difference between online retellings with narrative topic and narratives without it isn't statistically significant for the children of these age groups. At the same time, children at the age of 5 to 6 use much more various adverbs to perform the function of narrative linkage, both the adverbs of place and the adverbs of time. School-age children use only one adverb of time. It doesn't mean that they do not choose any adverbs of place, certainly they do, but they use them as meaningful adverbs of place, not as a narrative topic. If we take a look at the delayed retelling, we'll see that the difference between age groups is also statistically insignificant, but the variety of adverbs used by the younger children noticeably decreased. What's interesting with delayed retelling is that the narrative topic changes its function between these age groups. Children at the age of 8, 9 years old use it to maintain the narrative in chronological order. It's important for delayed retelling, and many delayed narratives in both age groups represent episodes in some random order. If a child uses narrative topic, it helps her to follow the episode order. Maybe we may say that at this age, narrative topic becomes an adult-like discourse marker. The mode of retelling, online versus delayed retelling, is also statistically insignificant factor for the children aged 5 to 6. But it's statistically significant for the children at the age of 8 to 9. You may see that the delayed retelling, for delayed retelling, children use much more narrative topics than for online retelling. I believe this confirms the change of narrative topic function, because when the retelling depends on the memory, the child uses the adverbs of time to help herself to set the events along the timeline. Sorry. This isn't important for online retelling, when a child has to retell anything while she watches at the cartoon, I mean the same moment. So it doesn't depend on her memory. And the last parameter, the form of narrative, is also statistically significant for the use of narrative topic. In both forms, children use the same set of adverbs of time, but writing doesn't require as many narrative topics as delayed retelling. I may say just a couple of reasons. First, written narratives were shorter than oral ones. Children provided less details and didn't need any specific tools to set these events along the timeline. Second, they could reread the written to remember the following events. And third, it may be explained with the school curriculum, as in Russian school, children start writing stories quite early, by the end of the first grade, and most teachers prefer this kind of narrative elicitation task to the oral version, because it allows to keep all together busy at the same time. Thus, these children are just more experienced in this task, and probably that's why they don't need to use narrative topic. So, the conclusions. Narrative topic is one of the useful instruments to maintain the narrative coherence for children, at least at the age of 5, 6, and below. At this age, children use various adverbs, both of time and place, and I think they do it to compensate the lack of time and place settings that are usually missed in the narratives we got during our experiments. On the other hand, children at the age of 8, 9 keep using narrative topic for delayed retelling, but with different functions. It helps to maintain the chronological order and not just to link the utterances. And at the same time, children do not need this instrument in their written retelling, and probably it's because of school curriculum, but I'm not sure about this reason, and I will be grateful to you for any suggestions you make. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope I'm in time.
Thank you, Polina. Certainly, you're even ahead of time, so we have time for questions. Do we have questions? Okay, do we have questions in the chat? Panelists, do you have questions for Polina? Maybe I'll ask you a question. Could you explain the choice of retelling rather than telling or producing a narrative?
You mean why we have chosen secondary narratives instead of personal narratives?
Well, yeah, there are different, different names, titles for these labels. Yeah.
Well, we followed a couple of reasons. First of all, we wanted to minimize any semantic differences between the narratives we get. So when every child has to tell the same story, we can analyze only some formal aspects because they don't differentiate in their personal experience, in the number of characters, in the details that they had, in the number of events they had, etc. And the second reason is that, as I said, it's a part of a large project, and here one of the aim of this project is to get some methods on how to teach school students to produce especially secondary narratives, because they have they have to perform this narrative elicitation task during their final exams, both in the 5th grade, in the 9th grade, and in the 11th grade. And so it's connected with this school aim, I would say.
Yeah, may I follow up with another question? Then one of the things you can test very well when you have retelling is the difference between age groups regarding the retelling of specific content units. And did you check that?
Not yet. Not yet. Maybe, we are in the middle of our project, so I think we'll continue. And I think that later, the more I study, the more I think that later I should study personal narratives as well to compare these two kinds of narratives, because I think they should differ in much more parameters that we have discussed earlier.
Do we have more questions, please?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, please. Roy?
No, I was just scratching my head, but you can see that Vital and Yael are actually using the virtual hand.
We have two hands.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. So Roy and then Yael?
No, I wasn't actually asking a question. I was scratching my head.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think so. Yotam also has his hand up, the virtual hand.
So Yael, are you going to ask the question?
If there's time. Polina,
yes.
Do you have, I'm unmuted, Do you have any predictions with respect to second language acquisition, whether the discourse, the segmentation or the semantic versus discourse parameter will affect acquisition?
We have thank you very much for your question. We have collected some narratives from the children for whom Russian isn't native language. They have different native languages. It could be Tajik or Ukrainian or Armenian. And I haven't made the statistical analysis of any comparison of these narratives yet. But as far as I see, I can say that in this age, well, it depends. Certainly, it depends on the time when the children started studying Russian. But generally, most of these children, they produce even larger and more detailed narratives than Russian native children. I explain it for myself with the following. I think that these children for whom Russian isn't native language, they probably practiced much more than Russian native children this recitation task. So it's probably because they tried to prepare their to update their level of Russian before entering school, and so they had to work much more on this aspect than Russian native children. But I'm not sure that I'm correct.
I thought that the prediction would be that the foreigners would use it more semantically, strictly semantically, rather than, okay.
Yes, probably you're right. Thank you.
Okay, and I think Yotam has a question as well.
I wanted to strongly disagree with your choice to define these particles as not discourse markers. I really, the fact, they seem to have a very strong textual meaning, metatextual, and the construction of the narrative, and that's kind of exactly what discourse markers do. And also, I don't think it weakens in any way your points. It's just, I really find your choice of terminology strange.
Well, it's arguable. Thank you. It's arguable. I see it, and I tend to differentiate it because of the functions. Because I can, well, I couldn't show it now in the presentation and to discuss all the stories we collected with the children in detail. But when I read the story and I pay attention to the use of these adverbs of place or adverbs of time, I can see that for the earliest narratives, well, you know, it's like, how to say it in English, it's like a parasite word for them. So they connect each utterance with this then, or now, each utterance is connected with the same way. And it differs from the discourse markers that we usually use in adult-like speech. And it differs from the use of this then or now by older children. So they differentiate their ways to connect utterances. They may choose different adverbs in different places, and because these adverbs that I call narrative topics, they are always in the first position of the utterance, always. They cannot change it. While discourse markers can take different places within the utterance. So it is very much alike, but I think it's different.
Okay, I think it's time that we move on. Thank you, Polina.
Thank you.
Eismont. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank for this opportunity to make a presentation in front of the people that I used to cite in my works many years, for many years. Thank you.
Okay.